Okay, this is what I really want to talk about. And what I do is this range control here, and I just whack it down full. And I'll bring the master threshold down to where it's just sort of starts touching the hottest meters that you can see in those different bands. And when you're in a recording in a bedroom or a home studio or somewhere that's not perfect, this does a great job at keeping those frequency responses even so you don't get booms or doesn't get really nasally, just to see what it's doing. Everything will always come after my misery. Welcome back to Mixing 2.0, where I've been going through every aspect to this mix. Because everything will always come after my misery. I swear that I tried to push you first, but you never stood a chance. No, you never stood a chance. So in this video, we'll be going through all the vocals. I'll quickly run through all the plugins. And if you want to see those mix decisions explained in more detail, I'll go back through those a little more meticulously. So we have the vocal tracks here being bussed to a vocals bus. Then that vocals bus, along with the vocal delay, vocal verb, and the backing vocals are all bussed to an all vox bus. And the way I have the session set up is that I have vocals and then all the instruments and everything on separate tracks, which are bussed out to my 2-bus or my stereo bus. And we'll get into that in the last video in this series. Okay, so let's hear the vocals soloed. Everything will always come after my misery. I swear that I tried to push you first, but you never stood a chance. No, you never stood a chance. Now you'll notice there's quite a few vocal layers going on in there. I did actually do a video a few weeks back that went through all the vocal layers to this song, and I'll link that in the description if you want to see how I did the doubles, the harmonies, the woes, etc. Okay, so what I've been doing recently is putting auto-tune on the actual track itself. I do go through and tune each note manually, and then with that done, I'll then stick on the actual auto-tune in auto and back off the retune speed a little bit. It just keeps it as in tune as it can be. I kind of like the sound of it, as well as, you know, the functionality of just keeping it super in tune. Again, personal preference, you might not want to do that. You might like something way more natural. That runs into the Shep 73. All I'm doing here is, as well as running it through the plugin, like you may have seen from the earlier guitar video where I just run it through the plugin to get the analog saturation, I'm also using the high pass filter here at 50 Hertz. And that's it for that one. Into a compressor. This is just to get the vocal level constant before I actually start mixing. So this compressor is, you see here you've got attack and release at 5. I'm just getting it at a constant level. Then into a limiter, again, keeping it at a constant level with the auto release on. It won't be doing too much there. Into a de-esser because the compression and the limiting is going to bring out the S's. So let that then, it's sort of the final stage of keeping that vocal level there without it jumping out with S's or, you know, dipping out or anything like that. And then this is something I want to go into more detail, and I will do when we go back through the plugins. But this is something that I've really been enjoying lately, and I think if you record vocals from home and you're not in a perfect studio, in a perfect situation, this is a great tool, and so stick around for that. And then into an EQ. If you see my other vocal mixing videos, I can't seem to do any better than the 4020 Retro EQ from Moog DSP. I used to use the Waves SSL channel strip, but I just prefer how this sounds. Into a compressor that's actually mixing now, so we're getting some vibe and attitude and energy. That's the 11 or the CLA 76 Blue Stripe from Waves. A final de-esser set a bit lighter than before because again we're compressing, so we want to make sure that those S's don't go nuts. And a final limiter that's going to be just sort of kissing it to make sure that that's pinning the vocal where it is. That's a genre specific thing. You probably don't want to pin vocals in other genres, but I do pop punk, emo and metal and stuff, and the vocals are pinned. Most things are pinned, but the vocals are pinned. As in they're not that dynamic. So okay, let's go through that in more detail. So I don't need to revisit the auto-tune or the Shep 73. So if we start at the distressor, the FG stress from Slate, I'll show you that I'm literally just getting a level with this. So in solo, and I'll start with it off and I'll turn it on. Everything will always come after my misery. I swear that I tried to put you first. So if you listen to that again, you hear that the vocal's sort of up and down a little bit. It's not quite in its pocket dynamics wise, and then when the compressor comes on, it's just all in the right place. So then we can mix it after this, and it not be throwing us off by the volume changing. I'll play it one more time. Everything will always come after my misery. I swear that I tried to pull. Yeah. Then into a limiter, doing pretty much the same thing. It should only really be kissing it. Everything will always come after my misery. Yeah, and then the out ceiling here is brought down so that it's in the right place, gain staging wise, which, as I mentioned before, will be when it turns from green to yellow. And yeah, and the de-esser is just controlling those S's that come out. We all know what a de-esser does. I won't bore you with that. Okay, this is what I really wanted to talk about. This is the linear multiband from Waves. The linear phase one just sounds so much nicer for vocals than just the normal C4 or C6 multiband. And what I do is this range control here. See where it's blue in the main window there? I get this global main range control, and it starts about there when you open it up, and I just whack it down full. So I bring this master threshold down as well. So it starts off at the top, and I'll bring the master threshold down to where it's just sort of starts touching the hottest meters that you can see in those different bands. And let's see if I can play you what kind of difference this makes. What it does is it really keeps the frequency response even. And when you're recording in a bedroom or a home studio or somewhere that's not perfect, the mic technique isn't perfect. You know, you've got a singer who really wants to give it some, so mic technique is compromised for performance. This does a great job at keeping those frequency responses even, so you don't get booms or doesn't get really nasally. It really does make the vocals sound pro. And I'll engage the threshold so you can have a listen just to see what it's doing. Everything will always come after my misery. So you caught that, right? It did suck the mids out a little bit, but hopefully you could hear how more just pro it sounded, because those mids jump all over the place with the slightest sort of bit of movement on a lot of the mics. And this was recorded with a Shure SM7B, which is kind of sensitive to this kind of thing, but a 7B is great, an SM7B is great for aggressive vocals. So this allows, this technique will allow you to have a really pro even vocal as well as a really good performance. You haven't got to worry about neutering the singer to make sure that your take is technically perfect. I'll demonstrate that one more time. Everything will always come after my misery. I swear that I tried to put. Yeah, really, really cool trick. Okay, into the EQ. Let's A-B this. Everything will always come after my misery. I swear that I tried to put you first. Just sort of opening up the top with a shelf just above 8K, and then a slight boost in the mids there, just to bring back some of what was lost with the linear MB settings, but not much, just under 1 decibel there. And then into my compressor, which is all vibe and aggression. This is set to the fastest release and a sort of medium slow attack. And I would have started with the in-your-face vocal preset. And this is for pure transient spitting in your face aggression. This is great. I love how this plugin sounds, and I just cannot beat it for the sort of aggressive vibe that I want to hear. So again, we'll start with it off and turn it on. Everything will always come after my misery. I swear that I tried to put you first. So hopefully you can hear that in the attack of the vocal. It's like it goes from sounding good to literally like it's spitting the words in your face. Let me play that one more time and listen to the attack of the words. Everything will always come after my misery. I swear that. You can really hear it on the word misery. Let me play that one more time. Everything will always come after my misery. Yeah, I love that. Sounds great. And with that, naturally, you want some more de-essing, but set lightly because we've got a lot of de-essing happening anyway, so don't want to make it sound weird by over de-essing it. And then into a limiter again, just to keep that level as pinned and in place as possible. These are chorus vocals as well, so it's all, 100% there. You might back this off if you've got like a chilled out verse where you want a more dynamic vocal, but this is chorus, boom, in your face. Keep that vocal there and don't let it move, is sort of my philosophy on it. Okay, so that's on the actual track itself. Now let's go to the vocal bus, which will be having these vocals and the stereo doubles and the stereo harmonies going to it also, which is why it's processed slightly differently. So we start off with tape saturation from Saturn 2, just to give it an analog vibe, into another limiter, because now that you've got all those different layers happening, things might jump out. So that is just to stop anything from jumping out of the mix and making it sort of fall apart a little bit. Another de-esser, because we're limiting, and again, we've got way more S's happening now, so that's to catch those. And an EQ, this isn't necessarily a typical thing that I would do, but this is where I've rolled off low end because there was a build-up of it with all the different layers in there. And then I've got this little bit here as well, because I just felt like it was this bit, this frequency here was building up and causing the tape saturation to oversaturate. Let me show you, if we put this in solo, I'll turn this off and hopefully it will show you what I mean.
Everything will always come after my misery. I swear that I tried to put you first, but you never.
It's something that I would have noticed after, hearing it hundreds of times. But it sort of stops the Saturn 2 from oversaturating. Okay, into another instance of the linear MB, doing exactly the same thing, but they're way more gently on the threshold there. As you can see, it's just only a gauge slightly. Again, with all these extra layers, different frequencies can spike, so keeping that even. And then into my bus compressor, which is the Townhouse from Brainworks, or Plug-in Alliance. And this is from the preset, the vocal bus limiter. And then I probably would have just brought the threshold to make sure it was only doing 1 to 2 decibels of gain reduction. Notice that the attack here is fast, so that I'm stopping things from jumping out, because we've got a lot of attack and transient happening with the way that I've used the 1176. So this is to stop anything from jumping out and keeping the vocals pinned. Okay, so all of that runs into this all Vox channel, where we have yet some more linear MB doing the same thing, just as gently as before. But that's because into this bus, we've got some backing vocals, we've got some reverb and delays and everything like that. So it's just to make sure that's happening. It's barely going to be noticeable. And then this is my final compressor. You'll probably see this a lot in pop, and it definitely has a sound that's identifiable and it gives a nice sheen to it. And that's why I've gone with this sort of the coloration that this gives you, rather than the practical uses of the compressor itself. And a little bit more EQ this time, higher up this time, this shelf. It's at just over 11k, and then a final de-esser set really lightly now. Okay, so let's go through these ones on the vocal bus. Okay, so let's start by bringing in the tape saturation.
Everything will always come after my misery. I swear that I tried to put you first, but you never stood a chance. No,
I just like this sort of, again, it's like an analog flavor type thing. It's not doing too much to the sound. I just like how it makes things a bit gooey. I don't know how you can hear goo, but it's just the only word that makes sense to me. Okay, a limiter. Again, I won't bore you with limiter and de-essers. The Pro Q we've already seen on and off. So let's go for the next bit of linear multiband from Waves.
everything will always come after my misery. I swear that I tried to put.
Yeah, that's just gentle, just to make sure those extra bits are getting the same treatment. And now let's hear the vocal bus compressor.
Everything will always come after my misery. I swear that I tried to put you first, but
just even things out, just catches those stray transients and stuff. Okay, so another stage of linear multiband, we've been through that. Now let's listen to the CLA2A, because I like what this does.
everything will always come after my misery. I swear that I tried to put you first, but
brings those vocals up front, gives them a nice little sheen, nice little bit of saturation. It's cool. Okay, and then we've got this higher shelf here. Let's give that a listen.
everything will always come after my misery. I swear that I tried to put you first.
Just slightly giving it some air. And then, yeah, another de-esser following that one up. Okay, let's get into some more interesting fun bits here with the delay and verb. So this is what that sounds like with those in.
Everything will always come after my misery. I swear that I tried to put you first, but you never stood a
So if you notice then when I muted that, it does take away, it sounds kind of awkward by itself. I love delays and reverbs on vocals. So here I've sent the actual vocal bus out. That includes all the layers to the Manny Marroquin delay, set to a quarter note. This is obviously in parallel, so therefore it's completely wet. And then we've done the high pass and low pass filter on it to push the delay back so it's not interfering with the main vocal, it's behind it. And this is a great thing about this plugin, is you can add some verb, add some distortion and doubling effects and stuff inside the plugin, rather than having to have a whole sort of FX chain. Let's turn that off and on so you can see what it's doing here.
Everything will always come after my misery. I swear that I tried to put you first, but you...
Yeah, cool, right? How it sort of just gently repeats that last line as there's into the space that the vocal part leaves. And that's because it's a quarter note delay. I will play around every song between eighth note, quarter note, half note and whole note, just to see what has the right feel for where the gaps fall in between the vocal lines and stuff like that. And then rolling off low end, because you want to make sure that those delays are sitting in the right place. And you'll have I have a sound in my head for where I want the delays to be. So that's what this is doing. It's just pushing them into that space, really, behind the vocal. Okay, verb. This is the Valhalla room again, and it's a plate reverb this time. I'll mess with the decay until I find the right tail for the sort of tempo and feel of the song. So again, we'll mute that and bring it in so you can hear that.
Everything will always come after my misery. I swear that I tried to put you first, but you never...
Now that's quite subtle because it's really tucked under, but you do notice if you listen really carefully, you can hear it putting those vocals, I say this a lot, putting those vocals in a space. And then followed up with an EQ, ugly looking EQ. But we've got some dynamic bits happening here where it was build up, because obviously from the plate reverb there's going to be build up in certain bits. And rolling off the low end, and again stopping it from being too bright and taking over or being too present with the vocal there. Let's show you how important this EQ is. So I'll mute that and bring it in. I'll for the purposes of this, I'll actually turn up the reverb so we can hear it a bit better.
Everything will always come after my misery. I swear that I tried to put you first, but you never stood. Now
it's obvious when the EQ's not there, and it kind of interferes with the main vocal. I don't want that. On certain systems, that will be too loud, too obvious. Okay, let's get on to the woes. Okay, so the woes by themselves sound like this. Yeah, okay, so it's not actually a woe, it's the word never, but they serve the same purpose as a woe. So, quite a distinct sound here. We'll turn the FX off for a second. Limiter pinning it, and then the old linear MB, making sure that the frequency response is even. And then into a bus comp, because there's actually quite a few parts to this. I think there's actually 6 tracks of vocals. So again, I've put the video for how I did all the vocal layers in the description. So if you want to see that, go watch that video. I won't waste your time with it in this one. Into an EQ, making them real bright so that they're sort of above, because there's this space here now. Are up at 16K. We haven't boosted there in any of the vocals, so we can put them there. And then about 3K, I'm guessing. Yeah. We haven't got much 3K going because it's so nasty, but it's a lot of energy that we can get out of these by putting them in that sort of 3K area. And then, yep, some tape saturation, quite a lot. And I think you probably did hear how saturated they were, and that's what I want. I wanted them to be gooey and not distorted, saturated. Limited again. And then this track spacer here is side chaining. So these are all the different vocal tracks, the main vocal tracks here. This is actually the vocal bus 10. So what it's doing is keeping those woes out the way of the main vocals. When the main vocals are in, it's going to eat away at the woes, the backing vocals. So okay, let's listen to this. So the bus compression. Let's start with it off and put it in. See, that is gluing them together, stopping bits from jumping out. That's why we've got a really quick attack here and still quite a fast release, ratio 4:1. And then into the EQ. So I'll turn the EQ off and then we'll put it on. So we've got a lot of vocals happening, so we don't want that low end in there. We cut the body out, we thin it out, and make it bright so it can sit above the vocal and lift the whole chorus when they come in, which is sort of why they're in there in the first place. And then this is doing the saturation. And I'm putting the level up there because I'm trying to gain stage it. But you could hear what the saturation did there, right? It's quite a lot. And then the whoa effects is just delay. This time it's on a half delay. So let's put that in there. That's cool, right? It's like a slow duh, duh. And again, high pass, low pass to push it back behind the main woes. And I just quickly want to mention that if you make music like this and want your next song to sound like this, I do offer mixing over at my website, terrybeckleyrecording.com. So if that interests you, then hit me up via the contact form there. The link will be in the description. So okay, just before the end, let's mute all the plugins so you can hear like how the mix sounds with raw vocals, and then we'll bring all the plugins in so we get a really obvious before and after. And with the mix on. Cool, so that was it without the mastering chain on. If you want to see what the mastering chain does, that'll be the next and last video in this series. So please subscribe if you want to see that. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you at the next one.